In Chapter 3, we are going to explore matter and energy. So out of the learning outcomes, there's two parts. Splitting from here, all the above about matter. I'm going to quickly overview the very basics of matter, and then we'll move into a little bit discussion about energy. Overall, this chapter is pretty light, and there's not much reading and discussion to do. I just like to go over very quickly about the basic chemistry. And the last part is very important, the trophic level and energy flow. Our textbook just slightly touched on this topic. Usually this is a very heavy part of my lecture. So I'm adding a little bit more to help you to understand what is trophic level, food chain, and how energy flows in the food chain in nature. So matter is anything that takes up space. I love to use the atomic structure of oxygen to review all the basic concepts. So the out shell of this atom is electron cloud, which is negative. And in the nucleus, there's neutrons and protons. And the protons are positively charged. That's why overall this oxygen atom has no charge, because it has 8 negatively charged electrons and 8 positively charged protons. But the interesting thing is if we look at the nucleus and see a pair of the yellow balls and the blue balls, which are neutrons and protons, they're pretty close to each other. And there is a nuclear force to pull all those positive protons together. So this is the basic of nuclear reaction. When you split this nucleus, there will be tremendous energy released. That's why we use radioactive chemicals, material, to generate those nuclear reactions. And this is a basis why the energy is tremendous when the nucleus is split. We're going to talk more later in the textbook about nuclear power reaction. So atom is a fundamental unit of matter, and there's 90 types of atoms found in nature. And I just need you to remember protons are positive, electrons are negative, and the neutrons have no charges. Each kind of atom forms a specific matter known as an element. So it's a pure composition, and it's just the one kind of items form a specific type of matter. And congratulations to this periodic table. It's 150 years old. The left side are light items and the very reactive items. And to the right side is least reactive items, and the heaviest is in the middle at the bottom. And we can see from 92 all the way to 118, they are not frequently, those elements are not frequently found in nature. Now I want to say a word about isotopes. So A is normal nitrogen, and the B is A proton, A electron, and 1 neutron. Electron. It's called deuterium. And C is tritium, 1 proton, 1 electron, and 2 neutrons. So that's the heaviest form of hydrogen. And the A is hydrogen, and the B and the C are the isotopes of hydrogen. So isotopes are items of the same element that differ from one another in the number of neutrons they contain. So here we can see a typical hydrogen atoms do not have a neutron, and the two heaviest form has 1 neutron or 2 neutrons. And sometimes we call it those heavy hydrogen. So this is one example of the isotopes. And I have a fun video. Please check this out. I will link this to the D2L. And you can see the application of isotopes. Not all the items or elements have isotopes. Some of them are. And they are widely used by human beings in various applications. And our textbook has an interesting case study about using isotopes to study sharks, so please check it out. A molecule is formed when two or more items bound together, and when items of two or more elements. Okay, the first concept is two or more items, so the second is two or more elements are bonded to each other. This is called a compound. So if you look at the left side, the items could be the same, could be the different. And if you look at the right side, two or more elements, that's definitely two or more kinds of items. The law of conservation of mass, that states that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So the universe, all the matters in the universe, are in a balance, some sort of balance. This is very similar to the law of thermodynamics, because energy cannot be created or destroyed either. So the whole universe is a balance. It either goes here or there. And the total is the same, even after a chemical reaction such as the combustion reaction. And they list the formula here in the graph. So after the burning, the total numbers of the items, no matter it's carbon or oxygen or hydrogen, they are equal to each other before and after the reaction. Only 50 of the 180 known elements account for nearly everything we interact with in our daily lives. So only half of the elements are common and reacting with us in daily lives. A chemical bond is a force that holds items in place. And the ionic bonds are the strongest bonds. It donates and accepting electrons. And the metallic bonds, those electrons flow freely among the metal items. That's why metal can conduct currents. And in covalent bonds, it's like the pair of items share the electrons that shift between the items. It's not give and accept. It's in the middle of the two different items. So it's like less strong than the first case. The examples would be sodium chloride. That chemical bond existing in that substance is ionic bonds. And in the middle, that's the example of metallic bonds and covalent bonds. One example is the force that pull the water molecules together. Right? It's not donate and accept. They just exist between the molecules and put them together. That's a covalent bonds. So the matter exists in three phases. One is gas, and the second is liquid, and the third is solid. Almost all the elements have those three phases, even metals. Here I want to say something special about water. And water can exist in three phases. About 75% of the surface is covered with water, the planet. That's like our body. In our body, about 70% is water. And water determines the weather and the climate. It's a very powerful force, such as hurricane. The most common molecule found in living things is water. Another word about the water. Water molecules are polar. That's why they pull each other together. It's difficult to separate. We have to boil the water to 100 degrees Celsius to cook it into steam and separate those molecules. And evaporation of water cools its surroundings. So people living close to the ocean will experience much milder weather. And the water is a universal solvent. It's a very strong solvent. Most of the things is dissolved in water. So a quickly review of acid bases and pH. Acid is any compound release hydrogen ions, and the base is accepting the ions. So the concentration of acid or base is given by a number called its pH. So in acidic solutions, there are fewer oops, need to go back. Yeah, there's fewer hydrogen oxide ions than hydrogen ion. And in basic solutions, there's more hydrogen oxide, so it's more negative. And in acidic solutions, there's more positive charges. To look at the pH scale, so the vinegar is very acidic, the pH is about 3. And the household cleaners, usually household ammonium, that has a very basic pH. And our blood is almost neutral, but a slightly alkaline. And you can see all the other milk and fluid, their pH. Last thing I want to say is the chemical reactions in living things. There's 2 chemical reactions existing in our body and outside in the nature every day. One is photosynthesis. Long story short, with the sunlight energy, the carbon dioxide plus water is converted to sugar and oxygen. So this is the chemical reaction of photosynthesis. That's why plants are synthesizing food for everybody, right? They convert the waste, which is carbon dioxide, and convert it to sugar and oxygen, and we can all consume the sugar and oxygen as humans and animals and all the other creatures. So in the leaf, the leaf has the pores, so the carbon dioxide and the water vapor can diffuse into the pores and into the cell apparatus called chlorophyll. And this is where the photosynthesis chemical reactions take place. And then the synthesized sugar is restored in the leaves, and the oxygen was diffused out of the pores of the leaves. The other chemical reaction is quite opposite to photosynthesis. That's going on almost in all the living creatures. So in this reaction, the oxygen and the sugar was going through these changes and converted to carbon dioxide and the water. In the formula, it looks like this. The sugar plus oxygen is converted to carbon dioxide and the water vapor, plus the energy was released. So when we breathe, we are doing some kind of work, and we release energy. We're breaking down the nutrition. We're breaking down the sugars. And those are the 2 opposite reactions, but that is very important in the nature and in our daily lives. So this concludes the first part of my lecture, matter